morning, everyone. I hope everybody had a great Christmas and a great past week. Today will be my second videos on the channel that has to do with history this year. One of the big topics this year is New Year's, actually. My last main topic was about how the YouTube play button decreased in size, which more updates on that soon. But today, the topic is the New Year's Eve ball. Something special happening, and it was released to the news just a few days ago that they are going to be retiring the current New Year's Eve ball. The ball is made up of 2,668 Waterford crystals that basically the crystals light up like LED lights, so they display multiple colors, multiple patterns, and really makes the Times Square New Year celebration very magical. Every year for the past 24 years or more, I believe 25 years, so since 1999, that was the year that they introduced our current ball, the Waterford Crystal Ball. Before that, there were many other versions. There were at least 7 different versions that we're going to be going through today, but they are retiring the Waterford Crystal Ball that has been used for 25 years. It will be displayed in a museum. Now, mind you, this ball is very giant. It's, I believe, like somewhere around 5 or 6 tons. It's been on top of the Times Square Tower. Very historic for New Year's celebrations that we'll also be going through today. So, very special that it will be retiring the ball this year. And next year, we're going to have a brand new ball, brand new design. So, we'll keep track on that. The latest news about the ball has not been discovered yet. I don't think they've even... I think they have the plans for designing it, but they haven't made it yet. So, we'll see what happens. But that ball has been going strong for a long time now, and they recently, just yesterday, a news video was released of rapper Pitbull actually helping raise the New Year's ball with the Times Square New Year's Committee. I think that's something like that. They help raise the ball every year with a special guest, so there were plenty of news companies covering that. So, I'm excited to introduce the new design when it comes out, so a video will be made for that. I will definitely show you guys the new design once it is released to the public and when it's made, obviously. So, we'll have a new ball for 2025 into 2026. And the fact that it's already almost 2025, it'll be 2025 in like 10 hours now, which is crazy, makes me feel very old, even though I'm not very old. But this was probably the fastest year. People thought that last year, 2023, was the fastest year. But this is way faster than 2023. I mean, it felt like the 4th of July was yesterday.
Spanish-American War back in 1898, but whatever. I'm going to record my own little video somewhere.
Go ahead.
Why is there Captain America in the middle of the field?
That's a good question.
That's a good question. One thing I'm not willing to answer. Who's Captain America?
Study shows that actually what's happening, that what makes every year faster than the other, is basically your mind basically conceives the perception of time and new experiences and new things that enter your life in the following year can make it seem like the year's going faster. But I think it's the poles shifting. My whole family think it's the North and the South Pole shifting, so basically the days spin faster. I don't know about that, but, you know, we'll see. Anyways, let's get into today's topic, New Year's balls. For more than 120 years, that's a really long time, the celebration in New York every year to welcome the coming year has been a traditional celebration across the world now, and especially across the U.S. Everyone goes to New York to watch the ball drop in person, while most people just stay home, watch the TV, host a New Year's party. A lot of stuff happens around this time. But there is a big history to how the New Year's traditions actually worked, and we'll be going over it very quickly today. So the journey of the most favorable and popular New York celebration started pretty much in 1902. Now, there was no ball drop, there was no celebration in Times Square, but there is a picture, I'll put it up right here, of a newspaper of some sort wishing the citizens of New York a Happy New Year or something like that. I don't remember it completely, but it's the first sign of a U.S. New Year's celebration locally, like in New York. So it's the first local celebration of New Year's. Till 1933, 1934, where it was displayed as a giant New York celebration at Times Square Tower. That's what it was originally called when it was first purchased, and they did have a New Year's celebration there. Now, I've recently looked up the New Year's celebration in New York of 1934 and 1935. However, I can't show it on here for copyright reasons. But please do feel free to look it up on YouTube. They have a live video of it from 1933, 1934, 1935, and up. So you can see those videos. I think they have compilations of stuff like that. But I can show pictures. So these are some pictures of the 1934, 1933, around that time. These were the New Year's celebrations. Now, there was no ball for these kinds of celebrations. They didn't introduce the ball on Times Square Tower until 1943. But as you can see on this tower right here, this is the Times Square Tower, famously known as the Times Square building, where the ball is always dropped every year. In New York, the New York Times actually purchased this building, I believe a very long time ago. I feel like in 1927, yeah. That's when it was first introduced. But on the top there, you can see where it says 1935 or 1934. They basically, all they did was have a bright sign on the top of the building to welcome in the new year. So obviously this was the start of the U.S. New Year celebrations and tradition. So the New York Times and the city of New York thought this would be a good idea, so they decided to do this every year. For a few years, they didn't really have the New Year's Eve ball. Because of, as I stated, in 1943, they didn't really introduce it because of World War II. So from around 1943 to 1945, they didn't have the New Year's celebration because of the war going on. So it was basically a silent New Year. But the ball was first introduced in 1907, but we don't really have footage of that. But the first footage was, I believe, in the 30s or 40s. This picture features the first New Year's Eve ball. Around the 1900s, it was first introduced onto Times Square Tower. It was operated by workers or people of the New York Times, and basically it was displayed on the flagpole of the building, and it was basically, it featured 125-watt light bulbs that would light up the sky during that New Year's celebration because there was a ban on fireworks at the time. Fun fact. Smart way to improvise, I would believe. So they basically raised the ball onto the flagpole, and the workers pulled it down, and they introduced the New Year that way instead of fireworks. Now, obviously, we have fireworks on the New York or Los Angeles celebrations, more, those are the ones with the most popularity. So they do still have the traditional ball drop, and after the ball comes down and introduce the New Year, then the fireworks are set off when January 1st comes in. Now, this looks very different. As you can see, the bulbs are very spread out. There's only 100 of them, right? If you're comparing that to the Waterford crystal, the Waterford crystal has 2,668. That is a big ratio. So it looks kind of bland, but I guess it would be pretty modern for that time. Now, this next one is my favorite. So this one has a few more lights. And, as you know, formerly New York is known as the Big Apple. So, in spite of this, hence the Big Apple, what they did was they created a New Year's ball for the tradition that has been going on for a few years now, I believe a few decades. They made the New Year's ball into an apple. So basically, they had the light bulbs. They had more light bulbs than the 125-watt light bulbs. So they had more light bulbs than this. I forget the number. But basically what they did was some were red, some were green. Some would create the base of the apple, the red ones, and the green would make the stem. So they even made it shaped like an apple too, because of the stem. They made a little leaf on it to make it look like an apple, as you see here, which is very creative and probably my favorite. The first real New Year's broadcast on live television and radio was led by Ben Graur, I hope I said that right, and by NBC in the 1940s. So Ben Graur continued the New Year's Eve broadcast on television and radio until 1976 for Guy Lambaro's CBS New Year's show, and then he handed it over to the man, the myth, the legend, and mostly the most popular New Year's host, Dick Clark. Here is a picture of the New Year's Apple Ball, the most famous one out of all of them, I believe, and a big fan favorite. You can see the beams that are holding the light bulbs of this New Year's Apple Ball they're very thin beams, and they hold about, I think, 6 lights each for each beam. So they're very thin, very lack of resource here, but it's a very smart invention. You can't even see the beams at night when it's late at night when they're doing the New Year's broadcasts. So when you're looking at it, you can't really see them at all. So it's basically just floating lights that are colored to make it look like an apple. And the stem of the apple and the leaf are basically just a metal engraving that makes the shape, and they put lights inside. After the famous I Love New York Apple Ball campaign, they basically had the another ball that's pretty similar to the one that we have now, the current Waterford Crystal Ball. I don't know if this one's made with Waterford Crystal or not. I don't think so. But it looks very nice, very similar to our current one. So they used this one after the Apple Ball, and in 1999 they introduced our current ball, which is the 2668 Waterford Crystal Ball. So that's your history of the different New Year's Eve balls, and a little bit off to the side of these New Year's Eve balls from the drop tower on the Times Square Tower, as we know. It wasn't always Times Square. In 1963, one Times Tower went from Times Tower to the Allied Chemical Tower, and it was displayed as the Allied Chemical Tower for the New Year celebration starting in 1965. In recent years, I believe starting in the early 2000s, I believe, was the Toshiba Tower. I forget what was in between that, but as far as I can remember, the Toshiba Tower was a big sponsor for a long time, I believe a decade and a half, I believe, until it was turned over into the Kia Tower, which we'd have recently for since the 2020, I believe. So now the tower sponsors Kia all over the place. Last year's New Year's theme was Kia, so what are you gonna do? Now, the New Year's Rockin' Eve is hosted by Ryan Seacrest for a few years now, I believe since 2012. The last New Year's celebration Dick Clark did was in 2011, going into 2012, before he passed away in, I believe, April or May. Rest in peace, Dick Clark, by the way. So, in honor of Dick Clark, which was the pretty popular broadcaster and probably one of the most famous and the most fan-favorited one, they carried on his New Year's legacy by naming it New Year's Rockin' Eve, which he had broadcast on the radio for a long time, and decided to keep his legacy alive by asking Ryan Seacrest to host it. So now, the New Year's celebration, which is streamed now across a lot of TVs over the U.S., has become pretty popular. So, ever since the original New York celebration, a lot more celebrations and ball droppings have been created and now a tradition across the United States, including in countries circling the United States, like the Caribbean countries, from what I've heard. It's actually pretty cool. During the New Year's Rockin' Eve celebration show in New York every year, the host, Ryan Seacrest, comes in connection between the New Year's celebration hosts in LA, I believe Puerto Rico, or Costa Rica or something like that. So it's a big thing now, a big tradition all across the United States. So, and I'm glad we have this tradition here in the United States. But everyone does have different traditions. So whether you're staying home, going to a party, hosting a party, or even if you're going to your local New Year celebration, even if you're pretty close to New York, if you're going to New York, have fun with that. Wherever you are, I hope you have a very safe New Year. Keep in mind that this is the last year they're going to be using the current ball. For more than 25 years, it has been a New York sensation and a big part of New York's history in the early 2000s in the next generation. I will not be posting into the new year, probably a little late into the new year, so sometime in January I will start back up on videos, but until then I'll be pretty busy, so have a happy new year. I hope you receive some good luck and some good fortune in the new year. Be with your family at this time and enjoy yourself. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.